noise!
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy.
What would be one or two of the solos captured in studio that you're most proud of that most people would be familiar with?
Manina. Oh, that most people are. The beginning of Manina, which is Ricky Lee, but she's down. She's in Bolivia, I think, maybe Brazil. But Manina, that's one of my favorite solos of all time. The beginning of You Are the Sun. You Are, which was still, I mean, we're in the room and the guys, I'm working with the guys from Commodores on their solo projects, and Lionel's doing You Are, and that's gonna say Lionel Richie on it, but the guys in the Commodores are still in the room, and the reason I'm working with Lionel at that point was because of I'd worked on a couple records that were not Lionel Richie records with James, Atlantic Star, a couple other things, and then so I'm there with You Are, and they said, "Oh, just bring a mini moog." I brought a mini moog, and they said, "Okay, we want you to put something on the beginning of this record, like play something at the beginning." And I went, with a mini moog without anything else. So they waited while I sent out for what is a voltage control pedal. And then I had to have something out of my modular 15, which I had to get another envelope generator, a couple attenuators, and be able to dumb down the VCF pedal so that I could do that. And honestly, I walked out of there, I played that, and after we waited an hour to get the extra little pieces of gear, I played it, and must have taken 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and I walked out of there going, "Oh, my career is over." Literally, that's going to be, people are going to hear this, and that's going to be the end of me, and it wasn't. It turned out really, really good. And again, where were we at? I think they still had quad 8 boards at A&M at that time. Quad 8 boards, which is like a fader with a couple of pieces of wire and a treble and bass control. That's like it, and clean as all get out, and a mini moog direct in there, and not running through a bunch of junk, and it works. That's a good one. Fallen is one of my favorite songs of all time. John Farrar, who wrote that and played the guitar and produced all those things and sang all the parts for Olivia before she replaced her vocals and stuff, but he sang all the parts, and he's just a brilliant songwriter, brilliant musician, brilliant producer. And so probably somewhere in that Xanadu era, there were a couple of things that might stand out.
What about a couple of not solos, but touches that you lent to something that you think are iconic in the Michael Boddicker canon, if you will?
PYT, Let's Groove Tonight, the vocoder stuff. Probably nobody's ever heard this record, but Donna Summer's one of the best records that Quincy Jones ever made. Was in between Give Me the Night and a Michael Jackson record. And he did a record for Donna Summer and called Finger on the Trigger. And it was awesome. And she has Finger on the Trigger is a great tune. There are a number of great tunes on there. And that, that's the team. That's Jerry Hay. He had all the different drummers he was working with, Steve Ferroni and Dugo Chancellor and John Robinson and Harvey Mason. And so he was still casting drummers for each individual song. And, you'd have a chart that came in and it would be by Gene Page, and there might be 2 or 3 other arrangers at the time, and he'd put the 2 or 3 arrangements together and make it into one arrangement. And it was a brilliant way of working that he had. And Rod Temperton was writing a lot of the tunes then, and that whole team carried over into the Michael Jackson hit era. And it was really some of the stuff on there, some of the best synth work that I've done. One of the things that I think that I was the first guy to do it, and I think it was stolen off those tapes, was the snappy filter that got used on so many rap records. What I did is I took a pulse, a gate or a trigger, and I hit it into a filter that was resonant or just on the edge of being resonant, and it would smack this filter from the top of the filter down to the bottom, like boom, and it made this pop. And don't go the way you make me feel, right? There's this, if you listen to that in the background, that and I played the filter with this trigger, snapping it. And so that's pretty iconic.
You're just fooling around and came up with that?
Again, when I began playing synthesizers, there were no memories. There's no memory on anything. You had to do it from scratch all the time. So every day was a different experience. Every sound was a different experience. Trying to go, okay, here now we're 4 sounds into this record. Now go back and create the first sound. Just required knowledge and knowing what your instrument did. And I think that a lot of them were really good at that time because it made things different. And that's, I listen to music now and I can tell when somebody's got a really good flute sample or when it's a different, a flute player with just a really steady vibrato, because each note is still different. And when you hear somebody playing a harp sample versus a real harpist, you can listen to the differentiation in each note. It's there. And I think that's what makes music more interesting for me. And one of the reasons that I've tended not to use sequencers at all these days. I record and I play the part in. And if I have to chop it up and move it around, yeah. But most of the time I just play it until it's right. And I want it to have a feel to it, instead of have a perfection to it, which was the day of the sequencer. Yeah, I just made it up. I just thought, oh, this could be cool. Let's see what that sounds like. And did that. There are a few things like that, where I'm using FM modulation, frequency modulation on oscillators where, nobody was doing that. It's almost, you listen to those original Mahavishnu records, and you hear Jan Hammer playing with an Oberheim ring modulator on his Rhodes piano, and go, oh, let's see. Okay, I know what a ring modulator does. I've got a ring modulator here, but what would happen if I just took and modulated the oscillator with uh, an audio frequency oscillator, and came up with some pretty cool things. But there were guys who helped me out. Dave Luce was one of them. A couple of the guys at Moog that would go, oh, Michael, here, you want to do brass? Here, I can show you how to go, put the spit into the filter, well, and build it into there. And I ended up doing those kinds of sounds, and Steve Porcaro famously used that a lot. I was able to participate with him on that, on the 99 solo and stuff, but I never take anything away from Steve Porcaro. He's an incredible synthesist on his own. And I mean, he must have been 19 at the time. He is still a phenomenal musician. Every one of those Porcaro brothers were, and the Porcaro dad too, Joe, fabulous musician, fabulous. You just, you look at the attitude. Oh, and I'm sorry if I repeat myself from what I've said before, but they played music all the time. And I talk to kids about that. Kids talk about, yeah, well, my parents think I should have a plan B. I said, well, that's your plan A. You're going to have a plan B. That's your plan A, because you're going to fall back on it. Because if you don't have any place to go but forward, you'll go forward. But if you have a plan B to fall back on, then you'll fall back. You burn the bridges as you go, so you have to move forward. And the Porcaros, Joe, as a father, he taught me that. You don't get a job at McDonald's when you could you have a dad who would say, oh, yeah, they're paying you $7 an hour. I'll pay you $7 an hour to practice here, practice. And it shows. His kids showed it. My dad did the same thing for me. He got me jobs. He had me teaching, and it just solidified my musical base, teaching guitar, or teaching accordion even.
In the late 70s and in the 80s, were you paying much attention to things like Bernie Worrell, what he was doing with Parliament on synthesizers, and the Moog for like bass lines, or Prince when he started using synthesizers instead of horns, which kind of was that whole Minneapolis sound thing that he brought in with that?
Very aware of the Isley Brothers. And that was a lot was Gary Coleman and Cal Harris over at Motown, and I worked with them a lot at that same time. And I always liked, one of the reasons I was at Motown for so long, and I worked there nonstop for a number of years when I first moved into town, was because we talked about the gold record, the people who only wanted to have sounds that were used on gold records, right? Mm-hmm. R&B records at that time, they weren't afraid. They were always looking for something new, and you listen to the phenomenal arrangements, the Gene Page, just brilliant arranger, Sylvester Rivers, brilliant arrangers. There was that thing, and I still have a little bit of that thing, and I have to tell you, when Prince came out and he was so sexualized, and I had a lot of people I was working with over at Motown, I'm sorry, at Warner Brothers, who he was part of. And one of my good friends at the time I was making records with, Michael Omartian, was very opposed to having Prince make those kinds of records that were so sexualized, because he was afraid, in those days there were no explicit music ratings. And he was sure, the mother I want to F you thing, all that stuff in the middle of records was very disturbing. And not that I'm a prude. I have really bad language most of the time. I raised 4 children, so I learned very quickly that if you use the F word in front of a 2-year-old, they'll repeat it. So I had to curb that stuff and learn how to express myself without that being my only adjective, expletive, adverb, whatever. I had to learn how to do that. But so I was kind of standoffish until I happened to sit right in back of Lenny Waronker when he was the president at the 1999 tour, and I saw Prince perform. And it was off the hook, man. He was just incredible. The best showmanship. There was all this, gratuitous sex stuff in there, but it was phenomenal. And I went and I listened to a few more Prince records after that. I did a lot of business with him where I rented him my Pro Tools rig. I used to have 4 Pro Tools rigs, and I used to have a bunch of like Synair type drum stuff, and he'd keep it for like 2 years at a time. And so I was involved with him, but not in love with him. Regarding Bernie and Funkadelic and all that stuff, it was a little too clownish for me. The whole image that they put out, that whole George Clinton vibe with the Elton John glasses and all whatever else. I may be a little bit too straight for that, but it was. The early R&B records I did like a lot, and the Isley Brothers in particular always inspired me to try to look up new sounds and how to make sounds that weren't going to sound like everybody else, and you'd go listen to them in 10 years and go, oh, that was really from that period. Like,
Right. Yeah, dated. Yeah.
oh boy, did I not want to be that guy. And I would try. So I have to always acknowledge the people that taught me. Ray Parker said, the goal is not to just give the producer what he's asking for. You give the producer what he's asking for, and then what you're happy with. So you can't do with what you're happy with and bypass what he's asking for. You got to get but you got to take it to another level so that you're not repeating what you did on the last record. And that was a Ray Parkerism. And Ray really helped me a lot, with just stupid things. You just go, oh, how stupid is this? If you want to do something bad enough, you'll do it. My mama always told me, if you want to do something bad enough, you'll do it. Well, what does that do? That's like ties right into Quincy Jones. Don't try, do. That was Quincy's thing. Look at Quincy, this is what I'm trying to do. Well, Michael, don't try. Do it. And his and again, I know I've said this in other interviews, but his whole thing about I played him a film score of mine that I got 3 days and 10 grand to do. And I said, yeah, but I got 3 days and 10 grand to do it. And he was like, well, it says music composed by Michael Lehmann Boddicker, or at that point it was Michael Boddicker. And he said, so when John Williams' score comes up, it doesn't say, I got $1.5 million, 6 weeks to write it, and $1 million recording budget. It says music composed by John Williams. And yours says music composed by Michael Boddicker. Yours has to hold up to his. Doesn't matter how much money you got, how much time you did, it's got to hold up. And that kind of attitude really helped. If you take the pressure off, if you have that not be pressure, but have it be inspiration, oh, I can do that. I can do as good as anybody else can. It doesn't matter. I just have to do. I have to perform. I have to play. And and again, we touched on that earlier, where if you're in a situation where it doesn't matter what you do or how good you do it, there's a famous engineer in Los Angeles who just nobody wants to work with anymore because he's like that all the time. Negative, 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 negative. And you just go, no, no, not going to do that anymore. I want to work with people who are positive, who want to help me get better. I want to help them get better. We want to we're supposed to be this. We're supposed to be playing in a band together. We're supposed to be making music together for the opportunity of making other people's lives better. And for them to give us, $1. They give us $1. They listen to our song, we get $1. If we can do that 1,000,000 times, it'd be great.
Did you ever go out on any tours?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was a pianist and organist for a very famous TV guy for a while. I don't even talk about him. But I did go out on a 30-day. We played 29 cities in Europe in 30 days with Randy Newman in the middle of the winter, like November. It was nuts. It was just nuts. And, we got to see nothing. It was supposed to be, you're going to see all of Europe. Yeah, well, we didn't get to see anything because we were stupid things like you stay in one place and you drive 5 hours to the gig in a bus, and then you're there for the sound check and you get the gig done, and that's 3 or 4 hours later, and then you drive 5 hours home. It's time to grab 5 hours of sleep and get up and start driving again. And
Glamorous life.
yeah, that was Randy Newman, and yeah, God bless him. Another great influence in my life, but that was a pretty good song when I played on Short People. That little trumpet thing, ba ba ba. It's very simple, ba ba ba. That's it at the beginning. It was a synth sound, and one of the first hits I had with Randy. Then we went on to do film scores together, but I'm sorry. He did the film scores. I got to play on them with him. Let's be very clear. I'm not trying to take credit for the genius that is Randy Newman. He's just one of a kind. And funny and dark. But I did Saturday nights, in fact, with my current wife. We played Saturday nights at a Budweiser beer festival, and it was Jerry Hay and Gary Grant and Larry Williams and Bill Reichenbach and John Robinson and Louis Johnson and Greg Fillinganes and
bunch of rookies.
Yeah, and Patti Austin and James Ingram and Philip Ingram and my wife Edie Lehmann Boddicker and Ollie Brown. Ollie Brown was playing percussion, and Quincy, had a Rhodes that wasn't turned on, but he looked like he was playing it, and it was great. And we'd go out and we'd do Saturday. We played, the smallest crowd we played for was 66,000 people, and the largest crowd we played for was 105,000 people at the Astrodome, and it was nuts, man. It was nuts. And we played, one night Michael Jackson came out and joined us on stage, and he actually he was crazy on stage. He started climbing the scaffolding on the side of the stage, and it wasn't meant for somebody to climb on it. And the people, it's like one of those things where you see scaffolding fall over and stuff and kill people, all that. People were afraid that was going to happen. And Michael was just like going up and singing and going crazy. And, he was quite the performer. I did music for him when he was in the Jacksons. I did the opening of the show for the Jacksons. I did the opening of the show for the Earth, Wind and Fire, like where I wrote the music for the show. Just when the lights go down, it's all the rumbling and the while the a little flash come on, the people go nuts. And so I write that music. Um, and
What was your Maurice White experience?
Maurice White was that's you just watch. He was a sweet man. He was a healthy man. You talk about, okay, how do you be a leader? Maurice White was a leader. And he's the reason I ran 6 miles a day. It's probably why my knees are shot now. But he would have the entire band it was like being in the military, man. They would run 6 miles a day. If you went to see the show at that time, Verdine White could kick like up above his head for an hour and a half straight. He literally, and with those big high boots, shoes on, it was nuts. They were in such great shape, and they were at the top of their game because of Maurice, and he was no dummy. He saw Jerry Hay, he saw Jake Radin, he saw Greg Matheson. He saw David Foster. He saw Bill Champlin, and he went, "Wow, that they've got these gifts, and how can I incorporate them into the music that I'm making?" And if I understand the story from Foster correctly, they like wrote the majority of like 11 tunes in like an hour and a half. It just poured out, poured out, poured out, poured out. They finished them up and stuff later, but it was just like things. He was brilliant, and you learn lessons in the music industry. He had a fabulous studio, the Complex, and it was George Massenburg built the consoles, and phenomenal consoles, but really expensive consoles too. and you look at all the people in the music business that just go for everything, and don't have any reality of the cost. You got to also it's business, and it's music. So the studio was phenomenal, and George Massenburg's consoles were phenomenal, and the sounds that came out of there were great. And Maurice White, I tried to get him to rewrite that lyric. I said, Maurice, we can boogie down, get down, get down. Let's rewrite this lyric. Let's see if we can come up with something better. And he was like, no, that's it. And of course, here we are. It's very iconic, and it just shows. I like to point out how wrong I can be, about things. That was one of the mistakes that I would have made. That was a big, huge hit record, and it has lasted for 40 years. And Maurice was always very kind to me, and brought me in to do other stuff, like I said, the beginning of their tour and stuff. And I got to work with Larry Dunn on some other stuff, and hang out with Larry Dunn. And you see guys in bands, and as a studio musician, I often thought, I want to be, have a band like that and all that. And the realities were that I was much better off where I was, much better off.
Did you ever consider like putting out a solo record or something like that?
I have considered it. I've written a lot of songs, even during pandemic. I wrote and finished and recorded 42 songs. I have records that could be released. People did silly stuff for me. Like I would come in to do a session, and they'd say, "Oh, we're going to release this in Japan under your name." And I'd listen to the song, and I'd go, boy, I don't love this song, but a couple guys in the Yellow Magic Orchestra liked my music, and so they re-recorded 4 of my songs. I wrote a song for Patti Austin, wrote a song for Lonnie Hall, who was Herb Alpert's wife, and I just I got into writing film scores. And at a certain point in my life, I wrote advertising, and then I wrote advertising for film. And I kind of keep moving through different phases. And right now, the phase I'm in is I'm finishing up the touches on my Atmos studio. And do I think I'm going to release an album before this year is out? Absolutely. I will be releasing an album. Will it be a solo record? Probably not. It'll probably be a compilation of film music that I've written that people have asked me to put out for 40 years. But maybe someday, I've got a whole bunch of piano pieces that are worthy of being put out, and if I ever get to sit still long enough, I'll record them. That's just it has been that life where the phone still rings. I still have jobs, and they don't go necessarily always on my schedule. They go on the schedule of the person who's on the other end of the phone. And when you watch interviews with Clint Eastwood and people like that, they talk about that. Do I want to be the guy who's always sitting by the phone waiting, or am I going to go out and do it? I saw a thing on Kevin Hart last night who said the exact same thing. Am I going to sit there and wait for other people to ask me to make their film and not have control of it? No, I'm going to have my projects, and I'm going to build my projects, and I'm going to seek great partnerships with people. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years is doing those kinds of partnerships. Do I always have the best taste in partners? No, I don't. But I'm learning from that, and I know that what I need to do is continue to move forward. And I'm not done moving forward. I really enjoy doing what I do. I do it all day, every day, and that's if I had to talk to a young kid about it, that's what I'd go. Hey, just keep working. Keep doing it. Keep writing songs. The first year I was in college, I think I wrote and put out I put in my $17 at the time. I think it was $17 per song to copyright it, and I did like 105 songs or something. I just kept writing every day. I'd write. Get up in the morning and go sit by the river and watch the river and get an inspiration, write in my pad, and then come back and write music and write it out, ship it off. And
You ever go back to
Iowa? Let's see. I've stopped this year. This year I'm going to do a couple of things. I've got a couple of things in Spain to go do. I probably will not go to Illinois or Wisconsin this year. I did go back to Iowa last year, and I did a seminar for Drake University. And it had actually ended up being in their advertising department, not in, about music for advertising and stuff. But I still have lots of friends back there. Do I dream about it? Do I dream about keeping a setup back there so I could fly back and play? I have friends who are still out there that are getting paid $450, $550 a night to play in Iowa. And I'm not talking about the bands getting that much. The bands out here don't get paid that much for the entire band. And these guys are getting that much per member in those beer bars around the campuses and stuff, and they're still playing great music. And do I think about it? Yeah, I think about it. But bottom line is I've been too busy here, and I just got my last kids graduated from college. I got
Congratulations.
Thank you. I got 4 kids. I got 3 grandkids, and I went from having what did we have? One, two, three, four corporations running. I used to have one of the corporations had 18 people in it. We had 11 people in my house on top of those 18 people. It just was it was a huge machine. And I'm getting to the place where I'm going, you know what? I just want to write music and not be interrupted. And so that's what I'm doing these days.
Is there anything that you'd like to plug to the viewers or listeners in particular?
Well, I have a film score for Buckaroo Banzai that's going to be coming out. Magic Egg, it's going to be coming out. We have a film that we just finished, which just went to Cannes and to Toronto International Film Festival, which is, and I believe he didn't change the title again, but it's called The Surgeon's War, and it's on a pediatric cardiologist who he's operating. He only operates in war zones where other people won't go, where other NGOs don't go. And he has saved over 10,000 babies in his career, and now he's educated enough people that they're saving about 10,000 babies a year. And so we did a film on him to kind of plug his nonprofit, and I'm very proud of that. It's called The Surgeon's War, and I'm one of the executive producers as well as the producer of audio. And we cleaned up the dialogue, we put all the backgrounds in, and we balanced the music, and it's called The Surgeon's War. The Surgeon's War is going to come out, and it's really worth a watch. There was another thing called a Midnight Marathon that I'm very proud of. It's about a judge from downtown who sentences people to life in prison all the time, and to balance that in his heart, because of mandatory sentencing, he goes out and he teaches people that were formerly drug addicts and homeless who are just in programs at the Midnight Mission. He teaches them how to run marathons, and then he flies them all over the world to do it. Say he's an artist who was running a marathon, he'd get him a marathon in Rome so that he could stop back and see Michelangelo's art while he was there, that kind of stuff. Or a guy who was a composer, and he'd get him off to different places over in Germany or in Paris to see, listen to great music, and also be able to run the marathon and boost his musical knowledge. And that's a great picture. The other one we did, which I'm very proud of, is called We Women Warriors, which is not the We Women Warriors, which was out a year ago, but one that was out a few years back. It is about the women in Colombia trying to do something that would help them circumvent the drug trade, because they've got 5 different factions fighting over that area, and the United States is spending $5 billion a year to deforest the coca plants, and these women are trying to keep their kids drinking good, clean water, and that's called We Women Warriors. That came out really, really well. And there's a thing pointing to intelligent design that I did for Illustra Media, and you can go to any of the last 5 Illustra Media films, and I've either composed the music and always have mixed and produced the music for the last 5, 6 pictures they've done. Illustra Media, might not be everybody's cup of tea, but for me it makes sense, because it points to the fact that I don't believe that I'm the end all be all. I'm not the most intelligent being in the chain. I believe that there's a higher intelligence, and that there's a creator God, and that's me. So as unpopular and as that might be, that's what some of the things I get to do, because those are enriching products. Those, it's one thing when Motley Crue comes in the door and every other word is the F word on their film, which we did recently.
Those are some fascinating subjects for sure. Is there website or social media or anything like that people can kind of keep track of what you're up to?
Nope, I suck. I suck at social media. You can look at Synthplex, which did some great things. We did great things at Synthplex. I have a group of people that I'm just getting ready to pass the torch on called the Hollywood Sapphire Group. There's a thing called the Tech Breakfast that I do. That Tony Shepard is at the helm of, and I really appreciate that group, and I'm trying to do some things here in the studio with them. And but at soul7post.com, SOL, the number 7post.com, there's some stuff on there. Synthplex, SYNTHPLEX.com. SST Synths, still very viable. SST Synths. I'm on Facebook on Michael Lehmann Boddicker. I'm trying to. I look at like Hans Zimmer. He has his social media on an iMac next to him. He's got his whole composition rig in front of him. His social media is right there, and he does a really good job at it. And I might have to start something like that, where I have a separate computer just sitting by my workspaces. But he's my hero. He knows, he keeps moving forward, and he's brilliant. If you haven't checked out Dune, the scores to Dune are
yeah, good film too. Yes.
Yep.
But the music played a huge role for sure.
Yeah, I got an engineering credit. My first engineering credit in a film that I'm aware of, and actually got to go to the Bake Off for the Academy Awards because that's for the engineering people, and that was nice. Although the people who are really the mixers are the real people who get those, who deserve those accolades. I just got to record some vocals and stuff. It was great. That was a great experience, and I
nice. Nice.
Very grateful to Hans for that.
Well, Michael, it's been great hearing your history and these stories and your insights. So much appreciate that you'd spend time with us today. Wish you continued what I assume is good health, and
it's great. Health is great. Health is great. And sleep is even better now. So, and still I planted 16 pepper and Anaheim pepper and Japanese eggplant over the weekend, and 12 tomato plants. And last week I put in 2 new lemon trees. So now I've got 11 fruiting trees, and I am healthy and walked 2.5 miles yesterday with my dogs and my wife, and feeling like I'm actually getting to live a better life than a lot of people who abuse themselves as badly as I did when I was younger. But stopping doing that as early as you can wake up to it is really important, and I always kind of try to push that. So,
well, good to hear, and thanks to Jonathan as well, and thank you for all the great music over the years, Michael.
It's really my pleasure. Scott, thanks for letting me reminisce about some of it. I enjoyed talking with you.
I did as well. So thank you so much. Take good care.
You too, man.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkinstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkinstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkinstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.